Okay. All right. While we're waiting for everybody to come in, there's a discussion question, and I see two of you have attempted it already. It should say the circle of life. So actually, I just added another one. The one that you need to do right now is the circle of life. So if you just came in and you have not looked at the discussion question, circle of life, I want you to look at that. Right now, it's a discussion question. All right, so it's got two parts to it. So it's really one circle, but they're dividing it in two. And so basically the line through the middle divides it in one a matter cycle and an energy cycle. Okay, so what the question is asking you to do is to discuss two facts about each cycle. So it says there's two cycles shown in the diagram. So I need you to discuss what is happening in the matter part of the cycle, what is happening in the energy part of the cycle. So everybody, please stop and do that first. Okay, so that should be under discussion in your part. If I look at it as a student, let me see where that is. All right, so yes, you should find it under discussion. Right, and then you want to submit your answer. Right. Once you have done that, let me see if I got it to go in. Once you have done that, so right out, it should be the next thing that you pop into. There's a sample AP question. I want you to look at that. So those are the two activities today, the discussion question and a sample AP question. So yes, this is being graded as well. Did I put, I don't think I put, I need to probably look at the question. I don't think I put the grade in there. So let me revisit that. So let me make sure that that is the way it should be. I know it's in the grade book. I just need to make sure I did it right. And that one I'll come back and kind of discuss the diagram with you. Yeah, I didn't, it's gonna have points, so. Okay. All right, so I adjusted the points on that. Let me make sure it shows up in the grade book like that. All right, so again, everybody is looking at the discussion question. Okay, I fixed it. Now it has points, point value. All right. And almost everybody has finished again. So make sure you look at the circle of life discussion question first. Everybody should do the circle of life discussion question first. I got 3 people, 4, 5 people who haven't done that yet. Once you have done that, then take a look at the sample. So on your module, it should be the very next assignment. Take a look at the sample question, and in in a few minutes, I'll discuss that food web with you. They have given me access to the AP textbook. So as soon as I get a link for you, I will make sure that you have access to that book as well. But right now, so I'll be pulling activities out of that book for you to work with. So this is to the unit that we are on now. All right, I need to explain something too about late assignments. The grade book dates are put on the assignment, and the grade book will automatically take a point off for each day that's late, or half a point off for each day that's late. So things that are really late might end up with zero. So if I give you some grace and take the late off of it, you get half credit for any assignment that's late past 10 days. Okay. So you can submit late things and get half points for it, because if I leave it up to the grade book, you'll get no points for it. All right, so a quick discussion about and again, and I don't want to discuss it too much because several of you still haven't submitted your answers for the circle of life. But let me just look at that for a sec, because it kind of pertains to your essay question. All right, so just looking at this diagram, um, they've divided one circle, and the one circle represents the fact that all of these things are necessary for life. So you have the matter at the top, and it goes on to tell you that they are abiotic factors. So that means they are non-living ingredients. And then down at the bottom, you have energy, but you have your consumers, your, your herbivores and your carnivores. And what the circle is trying to say is that these herbivores and carnivores need the carbon dioxide, the oxygen, the nitrogen, and the minerals. All of that is necessary. The producers are necessary. The decomposers are necessary. All of that is necessary for a living things in a complete cycle. And also notice as we go along the way, as far as energy consumption is concerned, at every level, heat is given off. So again, part of the cycle seems like energy is lost to the environment, but at some point, the energy that's so-called lost to the environment is captured in other ways and is not totally lost to the environment. Okay, so I'm going to leave that um, like that without going into too much detail about what you were supposed to say in your discussion. All right, I do want to look at the food web. Well, okay, we are going to come to that. Let me see. We're going to come back to that. Okay, where'd it go? Okay. Everybody does have access to this question. Oh, I'm not sharing, am I? Okay, let me share. All right, I want everybody to take a look at this food web. So yesterday we were talking about food webs and food chains and energy pyramids. Okay, so this is it says it's an Arctic food web. Food webs contain all the possible feeding, and then actually this is still small because there are other agents like bears that actually feed off of the Arctic, in addition to penguins being this is basically the aquatic organisms. There are some land animals that actually fish and are involved in this. And so this actual food web is actually a little bit bigger than this, but for the sake of the question that the AP exam was asking you, it states that there are three things that and there's more than three things, but they want you to look at the diatom, which is the plankton. And diatoms are little microscopic organisms. And if it's plankton, then it is a type of plant-like organism. So again, if you're looking at food chains, and the plant is always the base of your food chain. So in this case, it's the plankton. Okay, then you have the thing that eats the plants. So that's going to be your krill. Krill look like tiny lobsters, but they're not lobsters. But they're also very small. But in the center of this diagram is your krill. And because they are animals, those are your zooplankton. So phytoplankton are your plants, zooplankton are your animals. So these are the animals that are eating the plants. And then you have the cod, which is eating the krill. So if you look at this diagram, actually several things eat the krill. The baleen whale feeds on the krill. The seal, the leopard seal, and the penguin all feed on the krill. So there's several things going on here, but they only ask you about those. Okay. So basically, what I've done for you is I've identified them for you. All right. So the other thing they're asking you to look at. So I imagine that on the test, they would have asked you to circle them. So when it said identify your producer, you would have typed in producer on the diagram. You would have typed in primary consumer on the diagram next to krill. You would have typed in secondary consumer next to the cod or next to the seal. So that would have been what they would have asked you to do. It says, other than showing each organism and showing which organisms are consumed by others, describe what is indicated by the direction of the arrows. So we talked about that yesterday. The drawing an arrow on a food web is important. It goes from the thing that is eaten to the thing that eats it. Okay, so that's what it's showing. So what you want to explain here is to say that the krill eats the plankton. Okay, you want to say that the Arctic, because the arrow is also coming from the plankton to the cod, that the cod eats the plankton. Okay, so those are two arrows that are going from the plankton to other places. Nobody else is eating the plankton. All right, then you want to look at the krill. There's all kinds of arrows going from the krill. So according to this diagram, the codfish eats the krill, the whale eats the krill, the leopard seal eats the krill, and the penguin eats the krill. The only one not eating the krill is the orca. All right, so for that question, you would need to, it says, show the flow of energy. And I would imagine that they did give you a diagram. They would have asked you to draw one. Okay. And I put it up there because it says refer to the diagram above to complete the table. So I don't know, you would have to have created a table to explain all of this. So, but you would be using that diagram to do that. So somehow you would need to create a table. So create a table explaining what I just said. You want to have your producer, your zooplankton is your primary consumer, and your secondary consumer as a cod. So create that table, then explain the direction of the arrows, show the flow of matter through the trophic levels. That's back to what we were looking at in our discussion question. What kind of matter is flowing from all of these. It says as the amount of sea ice is decreased, larger expanses of Arctic Ocean are now completely free of sea ice for several weeks during each summer. Ring seals, the preferred prey for the polar bears, come to the host. That's why I said this one could, there's another picture that actually had the polar bears connected to it, and come to the holes of the sea to breathe. So this is what you want to look at down here. So I want you to describe this situation here. In fact, let me see if I can get the other picture that actually included the, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, but you all look at that question. So create a table and organize that question the way they've asked, the way I've described it for you. Let me see if I can't change that picture, because I did see one. The question that I gave didn't have a picture, so I picked a picture. But technically, hmm, okay, what I'm going to do is add a picture to it. I'm not going to take that one out. I'm just going to add a picture to it. So what you might need to do in a minute, I'll let you know when, is refresh your page. So I'm going to add an additional picture to this diagram. Okay, there we go. All right, it said that students have already submitted. So if you've already submitted, take a look, take take a look again and see whether or not you want to adjust your answer. All right, so now I've included the picture with the polar bear to make it slightly more inclusive for the question. Oh, and then I went and messed it up. Okay, I'll stop messing with it. All right. All right, so now when you look at it, it should show the polar bear as well. Okay, and basically it's gone through and included some of the things as well. So it's included the seal, it's included algae and the diatom. So it includes all of that, but it adds the polar bear to the web. So there's just two different ways of looking at it. Okay. All righty. All right, so now you're getting 1 point for each description of the sea ice habitat, how it affects the ability for the organisms to hunt and feed, I mean, the polar bear's ability to hunt and feed. So you want to include each of these points. So make a table out of this. This is how the question should be answered. No, you don't have to write all the steps. Someone asked if you have to write all the steps. Just make a chart of it. Primary producers, um, primary producer, primary consumer, secondary, and then put an answer underneath it so that you know how to identify, and then look at the diagram. Basically, the question has been answered for you. If this was the actual question on the test, you wouldn't have the answers to it. So basically, all of that is an answer. So I want you to create a table with that. Second part, the arrows, it asks you a question and then it answers the question for you. So it shows two things. And then over here, it asks you to describe what what the changes are, it's giving you the answers to that. Okay. Second thought, and looking at it a little closer,